What's that, you're asking? Talk about a movie that came out 35 years ago and still holds up just the same as it did when it came out in theaters? As you wish. I'm John Renton with the retro review of The Princess Bride from director Rob Reiner, who did movies such as Stand By Me. Oh, Stand, that's a terrible, terrible rendition of that song. He also did Misery, This Is Spinal Tap, this goes up to 11, and also North. Yeah, he directed North. If you remember the movie North, I'm sorry. It was absolute goddamn dog shit and wasted a fucking amazing cast. How did North see the goddamn light of day? But anyway, nevertheless, it's also written by William Goldsman, who did movies such as I Had to Write All These Down, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, the original Stepford Wives, not the Nicole Kidman one, which, oh boy, Nicole Kidman was sure nice to look at in that, but nevertheless, A Bridge Too Far, Marathon Man, Misery, and Maverick, not Top Gun Maverick. He wouldn't have been able to write that as he did pass away in 2018. Rest in peace, William Goldsman. But I'm referring to that Mel Gibson, Jodie Foster Western that seems to have been lost to time. I should retro-review that because that was back before we realized that Mel Gibson hated Jewish people with a passion for no reason. So, The Princess Bride, one of the best goddamn movies ever. You fucking fight me on that. Hugely entertaining, great comedy. Andre the Giant is Andre Rozumov, just whatever name you want to call him by, really could only be those two. Fucking hilariousness, even with his diminished physical nature, he really couldn't do much of anything. Years and years of drinking, the giantism, all that, getting his body beat up and wrestling. But man, he was so fucking delightful here. Seeing the making of this on like the DVD, on the Blu-ray, and it's also out on YouTube, a little documentary, just how beloved Andre was on set. Putting his hand over Robin Wright, her head when she was cold, having to catch her on wires because he didn't have that much strength. Cary Elwes, I assume that's how you pronounce his goddamn last name. I have always screwed that up. He was Wesley, the Dread Pirate Roberts, as you wish. Farm boy. And also Mandy Patinkin, who was in the first couple seasons of Criminal Minds. And Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die. Stop saying that! The fucking quotable lines from this. It's on Disney Plus, by the way, at least as of this review, so absolutely check it out if you have Disney Plus. And it does have Robin Wright as a Princess Buttercup. Chris Sarandon as Prince Humperdinck, even though he kind of acted like a little bit of a bitch. Count Rugen, Christopher Guest, who was great, just fucking great in this. Wallace Shawn, inconceivable. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Who's a great character actor. Great fucking character actor. Fred Savage is in this. He was the same height here as he is now. Peter Falk, his performance brought a tear to a glass eye. I'm not sorry. I couldn't help it. I really couldn't help it. But yes, Columbo himself has a cameo as a grandfather reading to his grandson, Fred Savage. Billy Crystal and Carol Kane. Carol Kane, thankfully, not smashing anybody over the head with a toaster. I hated that part in Scrooged. Actually, in full disclosure, I never really cared all that much for Scrooged. Everybody's going to hate me in the comments now. But a grandfather tells his grandson a story about love and monsters and giants and romance and adventure and people getting years taken off of their life and having to be restored through miracles. It's a great goddamn movie. It's just hugely entertaining. This holds up just as well as it did when it came out in 1987. I remember watching this at a very young age when it was on VHS. Yes, I know, prehistoric. And then DVD and Blu-ray. And I have the Blu-ray somewhere around here, but I haven't been able to find it, which means I'll probably end up buying it again and then at some point finding it because I'm just great at collecting things. But this movie's so fucking goddamn entertaining. You have Wesley, farm boy, him and Buttercup, they fall in love with each other, but then he goes off and then he is presumed dead. She decides to marry Humperdinck, not Oliver Humperdinck. We are not going back to the wrestling days there, even though if anybody remembers Oliver Humperdinck, well, you're better than most fans. But years later, Wesley shows back up. The princess gets captured by Vizzini, while Sean's character, Fezzik, Andre the Giant's character, and Mr. Montoya, Inigo Montoya. My best friend naming his corgi Inigo Cortoya, because of course he did, because my best friend's awesome. Just the shrieking eels part, cutting back to Peter Falk reading to Fred Savage, regaling all these stories, just the great pacing of it. I mean, the plot is almost second, is almost in the background, just almost way, way back there. Because the movie's so entertaining and so beloved and so great. And this is better than Willow, even though I did retro review Willow recently. That's also on Disney Plus, and that was pretty goddamn terrific. But no rhymes, I mean it. Anybody want a peanut? Ah! God, Andre the Giant was just great in this. You could tell he was having a blast. Apparently, he enjoyed being on set because everybody treated him as an equal. They didn't look at him as weird or as a freak because he was standing. He stood like way, way taller than them. Even though this was also around the time where he was going to need back surgery and was going to be heading into WrestleMania 3 sometime. God, I'm trying to remember if this came out in the summer. So that match would have happened a few months before this got released. But apparently he was a blast to have on set. Rob Reiner wanted to have him on set. He wanted to have him in this part, and nobody could have played this. Nobody could have played Fezzik other than Andre the Giant. But Robin Wright Penn, her princess tries to escape. Those are the shrieking eels. Grandpa, you already said that line. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot that. Peter Falk kind of sounded like Dan Rather from that Family Guy clip. I'm not sorry. I'm not. And the Cliffs of Insanity, he didn't fall. Inconceivable. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. And then, if you gotta fight him, Montoya. If he falls, fine. If not, the sword. Wallace Shawn just chewing scenery here because he was only in it for about the first 30-35 minutes. And then Montoya's talking to him as Wesley's trying to climb. Well, the Man in Black, as he's known. And he says, it's like, I swear on my father, Domingo Montoya, you will reach the top alive. They do. They, regale, have some good banter while they're sword fighting. I am not left-handed. I'm not left-handed either. My father was killed by a six-fingered man. And that's Count Rugen, by the way, Christopher Guest. And this is for anybody that actually has not seen this, has been living under a rock. Or you've been living under the rock, which is something a lot of women and statistically some men would love to do. So, he will say, this is what I will tell the man. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And the banter, and then eventually it looks like he's going to kill him. Nope, he doesn't want to kill him. He just hits him over the head with his sword and runs away. And then somehow Vizzini knows that he stopped him. Because I guess he can see in the far. He must have telescopes in his goddamn eyes. But he tells Andre, hey, here's what you need to do. Just do it your way. It's like, what wasn't my way? It's like, well, when he goes, it's like, grab one of those rocks, and when he comes around and his head was within view, hit him with the rock. My way isn't very spokesman-like. It's a very good thing that they had that captions are available. And I mean, I love Andre, but it was really, really hard to understand him when I was a kid. I mean, I sort of could because I saw him in wrestling, but I could imagine it was rather difficult. But now, thankfully, with streaming and with Blu-rays, you get captions because he had that very thick French accent. And I did like the one line that actually holds true for right now. It has for actually the last couple of years, but it's like, why do you wear a mask? It's like, were you burned by acid? And he says, I just find them more comfortable. I feel everyone will be wearing them in the future. Oh, God, he's not wrong. He's not fucking wrong. And then he chokes out Andre the Giant. And then Humperdinck and his soldiers are looking around for everybody, including Count Rugen. And then he does the whole banter with, Vizzini. I clearly can't choose the wine in front of you, but I clearly can't choose the wine in front of me. And there's all this back and forth and everything. And there was this poison in there. And then he's just laughing, ha 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 ha. And then he just falls over and dies. And it turns out they were both poisoned. He built up a resistance. And then, because the princess is not very intelligent, doesn't realize that this man that she fell in love with, even though he's wearing a Zorro-like mask, centuries before Zorro was a thing, she sends him down the cliff or whatever and says, it's like, you can just, it's like, I'd rather die than, be around with you as you wish. And then, oh, my sweet Wesley, she tumbles down the hill. Instead of walking down the hill, she throws herself down the hill. That's true love or true stupidity. I haven't figured out which one. They kind of go hand in hand. And then they get into the fire swamp. Rodents of unusual size? I don't believe they exist. And he gets bit by Joan Rivers the rat. That rat looked a lot like Joan Rivers after the plastic surgery. And then he gets bit on the arm, he gets bit on the shoulder, but there's these fire things that go up, fire, and decides to roast the rat and then stab it. This is stabbing, by the way. That doesn't look like stabbing at all. And then they get out of the fire swamp, and then Humperdinck and his soldiers are there, and she basically says, promise not to hurt him, and I'll go with you. Okay. And then Count Rugen has him, and he looks at his hand and says, you have 6 fingers on your right hand. Someone's looking for you. And, of course, obviously, Humperdinck was lying. And she's going to get married to Humperdinck, basically, to save Wesley. And they have that dream sequence. Boo! Boo! So goddamn funny. So fucking funny. Just this lady just boo! The queen of slime, the queen of filth, the queen of despair. Or refuge, refuse, I think is what it was. She threw out a lot of insults there. Hard to remember them all, even though I fucking love this movie. And, Count Rugen's gonna, torture Wesley because he's got him hooked up to a machine where he's gonna use water to take years off his life. Not exactly sure how that machine works, but whatever. So he's going to do that, and then there is Mel Smith as the albino, who's just great. He's only in it for a little bit, but he's pretty fucking great. And he says, well, Humperdinck, do you want to see me do my work? He's like, well, as much as I love watching your work, I got my country's 500th anniversary to plan, my wife to murder, and a war to declare on this other nation, so I don't have time to watch your work. And then suddenly he comes up with this brilliant idea to come up with more guards because he thinks that, people are going to attack him. So he clears out this forest of thieves and brings them as guards here, ignoring the fact that these people are probably ready to revolt at any point. Then he goes drunk, and Fezzik finds him, revives him, and then Inigo realizes, hey, wait a second, I need the man in black. Because Vizzini may be dead, but the man in black, he spared me, so I want to find him. And then Humperdinck is pissed. I would not say such things if I were you. And says to the princess, okay, I'm going to take care of this. Goes to the machine, turns it up to 50. Instead of taking 1 year off the life, he takes 50 years off his life. So he should be dead. He should be dead by a water power. Again, still not quite fucking sure how that worked 35 years later, but nevertheless. So, the man in black is dead. The sound of ultimate suffering, as Inigo put it, because, the screams are heard throughout the kingdom. Pretty far-reaching screams, especially when you put speakers out there. Speakers that shouldn't have existed in the 14th and a half century. Had this silly thing in reverse. And Inigo manages to find the tree, but they find the albino, and he says, Fezzik, jog his memory. They pass it out. I jogged his memory too hard, I didn't mean to. And they find a miracle man because, they're trying to revive the man in black, trying to revive Wesley. They find Billy Crystal's character, and he's the miracle man who was fired by the king's son, and he doesn't want to do anything anymore, and he's living with his wife Carol Kane, and he says, beat it or I'm going to call the Bruce Squad. And Andre, I'm on the Bruce Squad. You're the Bruce Squad. Just the picture perfect banter, just everybody praised on. It was such good shit. And then it's like, you're wrong, he's not dead, he's only mostly dead. I'm gonna pull a miracle or whatever. It's like, and then he talked about true love, but he says to blave or whatever, meaning to cheat. Maybe he cheated in a card game, and of course Carol came around that liar. And it mentions Humperdinck and annoys him and everything, and that just got so fucking good. So fucking good. They take him away. They say, okay, give him 15 minutes. Give him this pill. He'll come back. He will come back. Have fun storming the castle. You think it's going to work? Take a miracle. Goodbye. And then they give Wesley the pill, and it revives him, but it takes a while for him to come back because his body to come back because he can wiggle his fingers, but can't really move much. And Andre says, "You moved your finger, isn't that wonderful?" And then it'll take time for him to come back. You just shook your head. Doesn't that make you happy? It's like my brain's your strength, his steel, and you think a head nod is supposed to make me happy. And then they have Andre the Giant and a giant apparatus, ironically. There will be no survivors. The dreaded Pirate Roberts is coming for your souls. So fucking good. And then they storm the castle. Rugen and Montoya battle. At one point, he throws a knife in his gut. Rugen does, but Inigo keeps coming back and says, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." It says a bunch. Stop saying that. And then he manages to stab him a few times, and then says, "I want whatever I ask for, anything you like." Stabs him. "I want my father back, you son of a bitch." Meanwhile, pretty entertaining moment just before where Andre the Giant just knocks the door down and lets him through so he can do that scene I just talked about. The princess is going to end her life because she doesn't want to be without Wesley. She doesn't want to be married to Humperdinck. And then Wesley's there on the bed because he left, or Andre the Giant had to leave him alone while he knocked down that door. And then he makes a deal basically with Humperdinck. They have a war of words. To the death, no, to the pain. First you will lose your ankles, your hands just below the wrists, your eyes and everything. It's like, and my ears, I suppose. Let's get on with it. No, your ears you will keep. So whenever you are out in public or whatever, every person, every single being can say, "Dear God, what is that thing?" And that will echo in your perfect ears. It's a great series of lines that I can't even begin to fully encapsulate. He stands up and Humperdinck gets captured. They find the 4 white horses. "Hello, lady." Andre catches her. They take off. And they live happily ever after. The end. And even the grandfather says, "Okay, well, I'm going to get going." And Fred Savage says, "Grandpa, maybe you could come back and read again at some point, as you wish." And there you go. It's a great goddamn fantasy movie and so fucking entertaining, and I may watch it again at some point. Not right now. I have other shit to watch and other stuff to do, like work. But this movie is hugely entertaining. It's great to watch every 6 months to a year. It never gets dull. In fact, you find different things that you forgot. Or different things that you didn't know about. Whatever the words are that I'm trying to find, I can't really find a way to close this review properly. So, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.